YouTube, once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. We're talking a little bit about Auburn football. I want to talk about my man Anthony Schwartz today, one of the fastest players in college football. A lot of y'all been asking to do a video on Anthony Schwartz. I talk about Anthony Schwartz a lot, at least I thought I did. And we're looking for Anthony Schwartz to continue to be a very impactful player for the Auburn Tigers. Now, when we look at the stats on Anthony Schwartz, I think he probably underutilized, but for a couple of reasons in this particular season. If you remember right, he had a hand injury at the beginning of the season. He was going to be a very integral piece to the Auburn puzzle, but because of that injury, really limited his abilities. As a matter of fact, Auburn needed him so bad that he was actually seen playing with a cast on his arm during this particular season. I think, you know, with his speed, with his ability, and his skill set, he will play a huge role in Chad Morris's offense this year. What is Anthony Schwartz's skill set? Well, number one, he's faster than anybody that will guard him, period. Usually has the upper hand, usually has the step on him. If you think about this guy from Pembroke Pines, Florida, track star, has a gold medal, participates in Auburn's track squad, but this particular year, Auburn didn't have track this year, so he had a chance to. It would have been great for him to have been able to participate in a spring football training, but of course that did not happen. Where is Anthony Schwartz, I feel, important on this particular football team? Well, especially in the intermediate routes, those dig routes. That's something that Chad Morris is really going to have to find a way to get the ball to Anthony Schwartz in space. I'm really not feeling the whole jet sweep thing with him. That's not really, because that's very predictable. When Anthony Schwartz is in that slot position and he comes around, they know he's getting the football. Caught Texas A&M off guard, caught a couple of teams off guard. Usually, if you're going to run Anthony Schwartz on that jet sweep, it needs to be something that's set up because you already have a rhythm going. You got the rhythm, and then all of a sudden, you do a home run thing and hit Anthony Schwartz on that particular jet sweep. But what I would like to see more of is Anthony Schwartz in that post route. I like to see him in the intermediate dig routes. That's something that's going to be very beneficial to Auburn, to utilize his speed to create some mismatches, because the typical nickelback, the typical linebacker in college football is just not going to be able to guard him. He's going to be open. It was seen even in the LSU game, to where he was killing them on those intermediate routes early in the football game. Those short routes where you get the ball out to him real quick in the space and let him do his work after that. You can see even in the highlights that I provided how much speed he has, how much ability he has to separate. And that's going to really pay dividends to Auburn, especially considering the experience that you got coming back. You have Seth Williams coming back. You have, oddly enough, you got Eli Stoll, who seems like he's been around Auburn's program for pretty much Gus Malzahn's whole tenure there. He is the one that you need to do that jet sweep with. He's very good at it. He was actually very active also in the passing game for Auburn. And then looking at the recruits that you have coming, that Auburn has coming back, I think these guys are set up to have a very, very decent receiver core. I think one of the biggest losses to Auburn's receiving core here in recent time was the loss of Kyle Davis out of Lawrenceville, Florida, went to Archer High School, got kicked off the team. He was going to be a star, period. He had a great year, but Auburn, for whatever reason, let him go. I don't know the details of why he's not at Auburn anymore, but that was a huge loss for the Auburn Tigers as well. So when we look at Anthony Schwartz, his statistics at Auburn, year one, 2018, had 22 receptions, 357 yards, 16.2 yards per catch, had 2 touchdowns in 2019. Upped his stats a little bit, doubled his production, especially with the touches, but his average wasn't quite as much, 10.7 yards per reception. So I think when you look at the experience factor, you look at Bo Nix starting to get more and more comfortable with the receivers that he has in place, Anthony Schwartz absolutely has to have a pivotal part in what Auburn plans to do this particular fall. All indications say that there is more than likely, I would say 60 to 70, maybe 75% of a chance that there will be a college football season this year. I don't know if it's going to be a football season with, at the beginning, maybe there'll be limited fans. Maybe they will practice a little social distancing in the stadiums. But even so, Auburn is set up to have a relatively talented wide receiver core. The thing is, between Cody Burns and Chad Morris, they have to come up with a passing game type of coordination to get these guys the football in places that are pivotal points on the football field. If you think about it, I think Joe Brady from LSU did an excellent job of finding parts of the football field that cornerbacks just couldn't cover. One, most of the linebackers were too slow to help supplement the pass coverage. Auburn was an exception to that rule because you had Zacoby McClain, you had KJ Britt, who was a little shaky in pass coverage. Then you had Owen Pappo, who was there as well. And Chandler Wooten, all those guys were just so much faster. That gave Auburn a lot of leverage as to how they could help with pass coverage. Then you had Daniel Thomas and Jeremiah Denson, who could help supplement with tackling. Jamian Sherwood and Smoke Monday, who helped supplement as well. So they gave LSU pretty much the best case scenario of how to defend their offense, or at least limit some of the things that the big plays that they really like to make. But back to Anthony Schwartz. Get the guy to football. You got to get it to him. He is the fastest guy in college football. He should be a guy on this particular football team that should be a combination, kind of like what Sammy Coates and Ricardo Lewis and Quan Bray and all those guys were back in the early part of Gus Malzahn's tenure. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how Anthony Schwartz is utilized. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here with the podcast talking Auburn football. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're talking about my man, fast guy, Anthony Schwartz. Like the video, and as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.